Good morning. Welcome to Faith Family United Church of Christ Sunday morning Bible study. This is Bible 101, and we will be just going over the basics of what's in each one of the books of the Bible. Not get too into depth, just so we know what each book of the Bible has to offer. Today we are actually going through, we'll go through all the books of the Bible. As you can see, they're broken down into four main groups in the Old Testament. Right now we are in the historical books, and then when later on we will be going to the Gospels and the New Testament, and you can see it's also broken down into the four groups: the Gospels, the biographical, which is the Book of Acts, then the letters or the epistles, and the prophets. And here we are in the historical books. We are in the Book of Ezra, and if you want to go back and look on our YouTube channel, all of these books are what we've already went over, so you can go back and see them and see what's in each one of the books and see our beginning, how the Bible was put together. Once again, that's in our historical. If you go under playlists, and you'll see the Bible 101 and all the catalog of all the other ones. So we are in the book of Ezra. We just finished Chronicles, and in the Chronicles we learned that the Jews were taken away to captivity in Babylon. First, the nation of Israel was taken away under the Assyrian captivity, and then later Judah and Jerusalem was also taken away into the captivity of Babylon. And in the book of Ezra starts out in chapter 1 with King Cyrus of Persia making a decree, and he lets the Jews go back home, and he decrees that they are to rebuild their temple to their God. So all the people are packing up, and they are going back to their home in Jerusalem and Israel. And in section 2, now it starts out really well in Ezra. And you get this decree, and you hear what the decree is, and the people are going home, and there's kind of this joyous moment. And so for some reason the Bible likes to do this. It gets really good, and then you have a census of everybody that went back at that time. And so you get this long list of this person is the father of this person and the father of this person. And so you have this big long list that's very boring to read. And I think the Simpsons make fun of it a lot of times, and when their preacher ends up preaching on those kind of verses, it's nothing there to really understand, unless you're doing the genealogy, and you can kind of see the line of the lineage of like Christ. When they do the lineage of Christ in the New Testament, it's interesting to see how Christ went back through his generations and who was his ancestors. But here it's kind of boring, and anyway, so that's chapter 2. In chapter 3. We were told that they begin worshiping again in Jerusalem, and they actually lay the foundation for the new temple. And they begin building it. There's great joy in the land. They're doing their worship like they normally used to do, which they couldn't do in Babylon. And now they're home, and they're doing their worship. Great, joyous chapter 3. In chapter 4, we see that there's some animosity. Remember that when the people were taken away from the northern area, that the king, I think it was Sennacherib, sent people from other kingdoms to inhabit to possess the land. So basically, what he did was he transported people from one area, put them in the other part of his kingdom, and then took people from the other area in his kingdom and made them the lands, and this is where Syria. This is where the Samaritans came in. This is one of the reasons why there's so much animosity when we get to the New Testament between the Samaritans and the Jews of Jerusalem and Judah, because of the fact that they were intermixed with some of the Jews that were left there, but they considered themselves part of Israel. So, but the Jews didn't consider them. So these people actually had some animosity, and they're like, "Who told you can build the temple?" And so they come up and they try to get them to stop building the temple. And as a matter of fact, it works a little bit. It says, "Then the people of the land discouraged the people of Judah, and they actually sent a letter to King Cyrus saying, 'Is this right? You know these people are rebels, and why are you letting them do this?'" And just so you can understand, it says that they halted the building from Cyrus, the king of Persia, until King Darius of Persia. So there's several kings in line there, but they wanted to let you know that I wanted to let you know that these are the dates for the kings of Persia. Cyrus was until 530. Then Darius the First came along, or Darius the Great. I think is Darius. Darius is the one that's in the movie 300, where they go and fight Sparta. I think that's Darius, or it might be Xerxes. But anyway, that you can kind of get a time frame of what's going on in the rest of the world with that. So Darius is the king next, and then Xerxes, and then Artaxerxes is in there as well. So we get to chapter 5, and after the delay, they finally resume rebuilding the temple. We are first introduced to the prophets Haggai and Zechariah here, just in passing. They just mentioning them a little bit, and then again the question about the rebuilding of the temple. And this time they sent a letter to King Darius and asked him, does he approve of this? And so he says for them to search, and they find a scroll from in the archives, and from King Cyrus, and it says that they were to rebuild their homes and rebuild the temple. So he gives them a thumbs up. Darius gives them a thumbs up, and they are ready to rebuild the temple. So, and then of course Darius, on seeing this, he also says that in building the temple, the treasury, from the royal treasury, from the area. So they take tribute from the areas to pay taxes. Anyway, from those taxes is to be built the temple, and they're also to be given all their stuff that they had been taken when they were brought into captivity. So they get all this big census of what the gold is and what the silver is, and this is all the temple gifts from King Cyrus. And then Darius, and Artaxerxes. The temple was being built during all three of these kings, and then when the temple was finally finished, they have their first Passover in the new temple. And this is a very joyous, and I think it says 7 days that they partied for 7 days. They ate leavened bread, and they had the worship for 7 days. Somewhere I missed chapter 7 and chapter 8. All right. So after they build the temple, sorry, let me get this right. Chapter 7. What is in chapter 7? I forget what's in chapter 7. Okay. So chapter 7, chapter 8, I don't know why I missed the slide on that. Dropped the ball there. But going on, in chapter 9, we see that there's a concern about the intermarriage. I know what happened in chapter 6 and chapter 7. Chapter 6 and chapter 7 is when Ezra finally comes in. I mean, the book's named after him. And so he finally comes into the picture here, and it tells about him coming in. And chapter 6 and chapter 7, chapter 8, kind of as boring chapters when they do the census again. And these are the people that Ezra comes over and comes to Jerusalem from out of captivity. And then it talks about Ezra going around and finding people that were of the tribe of Levi to be the priests at the temple. So that's chapter 7 and chapter 8. And in the end of chapter 8 and the beginning of chapter 9, there's this problem with intermarriage. When they were in captivity, some of the Jews married some of the Babylonian women, or when they came back and they're the Samaritan people that are consider themselves Israelites, but now they're not. They intermarried with them as well, and so now there's this big long census of who married who, and then they brought this issue to Ezra, and Ezra prays about it. And chapter 9 is all about Ezra's prayer, and it's kind of disheartening to hear this, because he blames all of the woes on Israel and on Judah because of them intermarrying with the people of the land. They didn't keep their bloodline pure. And so that's what this whole prayer is. And he's like begging God's forgiveness for the whole nation. And then in the end, they decree that they make a census that they are going to rectify this. And so they make a census of all the people that married foreign women. And that's in chapter 10. And they sent, it says that they decreed that they were going to send the women away. They made a pledge of all these people, made this pledge that married foreign women, that they were going to send their women and their children away. And then the interesting part about that, and this is the end of Ezra, the interesting part about that is that not all the manuscripts that we have say that they sent the children away. That's kind of in the footnote where they only found it in certain texts of the copies of the Old Testament. But in some it says that they sent their women away, and others it just said that they promised that they would do that. And that's kind of where the book of Ezra ends. But if you really think about this, at that time, if they were to just do away with their wives and their children, if their children were not old enough, if the male children weren't old enough, this was almost like a death sentence. Basically, they're sending them into poverty, and this is troubling as we look back across the time at this. How do we justify them just totally just letting their family just get out of my life, go away? And it doesn't seem morally right for us today for people to do that. You can't just dismiss your family like that. But, it is what it is, and that's what it says happens. So the book of Ezra, very short book, tells about how basically the temple was reborn and how the people came out of the captivity from Babylon and back into Jerusalem, and the nation of Israel was started under the guidance of Ezra. Any questions? Short and sweet. And that's the book of Ezra. All right. Hey, if you got any questions, let me know. Next week we're going to go over the book of Nehemiah. Next week we're going to start a little early. We're gonna post this at 10 o'clock, and that way you do it just like you do on a regular Sunday. You could do this at 10 o'clock, and then at 10:30 you can catch our service for next week. All right. So hopefully we'll see y'all next week. Send me your questions, and I'll try to answer all of them. All right. Have a good day.